Sister's tantrums ruined my birthdays and led to community backlash, teaching my parents a harsh lesson in consequences. I'm 20 male, and this happened when I was 14. I have a sister that's about 6 years younger than me, and she was extra coddled by my parents for having been diagnosed with high-functioning autism when she was 4. But other than that, she seems very normal, just unbelievably spoiled. And she used it to get her way a lot. And by a lot, I mean nearly all the time. Anything I had, she also had to have. So that meant we had doubles of almost everything that wasn't shared items. And anything she had that I didn't, she'd rub in my face any way she could. When I was 11, I begged my parents for a 3DS for my 12th birthday. I got one, but then was told to lend it to my sister whenever she wanted it, or else I'd have it taken away, which it was a lot. When my uncle found out after seeing my parents forcibly take my 3DS out of my hands to give to my sister on one of his visits, he let loose on them for such blatant favoritism. They returned my 3DS immediately, then blamed me for the situation after my uncle left. But they didn't make me give it to my sister again. Instead, my parents went out a few days later and bought another 3DS as a surprise gift for my sister. On several of mine and other people's birthdays, my sister made a huge fuss because the party wasn't all about her, even going so far as to outright state that she was upset because she wasn't getting any gifts or getting to blow out the candles on the cake. My parents learned the hard way that they couldn't enable my sister the way they'd have liked at those parties and were actually kicked out of a few for trying. And because of that, other kids at her school stopped inviting her to birthday parties altogether. For me, my birthdays were some of the only days I had that I got to have about me because otherwise, my parents forced my life to revolve around my little sister. And the year prior to when this story took place, my parents ended up paying more attention to her the entire time of my 13th birthday and even asked me if I'd let my sister blow out my candles for me because she was upset and pouting. I refused it because I wanted to blow out my own candles. They called me a spoiled brat at first till my uncle intervened and chastised them on their favoritism yet again and stated how much he had noticed how my sister gets nearly everything between the two of us just because she's autistic. My parents got no support from anyone else there other than my sister, who was still crying because she wasn't getting to blow out my candles. And because she didn't get her way, she tried to outright spit on my cake out of spite. But my awesome uncle thankfully blocked her before she got the chance, then scolded her till she ran to my mom in tears. My parents took a lot of heat from the other adults there and then promised to never ask me to let my sister blow out my candles again. But they pretty much just went through the motions for rest of the party. My uncle pretty much took over coordinating everything from that point. The following year, a couple of weeks before my birthday, my parents sat me down and told me they were still going to get me some gifts and a small cake, but my birthday party was effectively cancelled to avoid my sister having another meltdown. I told them I couldn't believe they were doing this to me, and they just seemed to shrug it off without a care. So at school over the next week, I told my friends, my teachers, and even my school counselor. All of them were appalled by my parents' lack of consideration or empathy. The vice principal even found out and consoled me, and all of this got back to my parents through social media. My parents ended up grounding and gaslighting me for telling so many people, but that didn't stop me from still telling everyone at school that I was grounded for just being upset my birthday was cancelled for no good reason. I guess that made it a lot worse because several of my parents' own friends along with parents to other kids in my school called them up or sent them FB messages basically saying what the hell is wrong with you. And suddenly, I was ungrounded. I didn't get an apology either. My mom just walked into my room with her arms crossed, told me my grounding was over early, and then walked out. That was it. I thought my party was still cancelled because nobody said anything about it, and my sister thought it hilarious and rubbed it in my face that I wasn't going to get to celebrate. But by the end of the 2 weeks, my parents held a surprise party for me at my favorite restaurant and then started claiming that was their intent all along. I knew it wasn't. From what I'd seen, everyone was incredibly unhappy with them for what they did, and it showed with any interactions family members had with my parents. So they ended up doing the surprise party to try and save what little of their reputations they had left. But I'm pretty sure they had to pay through the nose that day to just accommodate me. I got dinner with all my friends at my favorite restaurant that had a small arcade and even got the PS4 game system I'd been jonesing for at the time. I could tell it was all pretty much planned and bought last minute because my mom had a look about her that my uncle comically described as looking like a moth had flown out of her wallet. My sister, of course, made a huge fuss that I got that surprise party. But with so many of my friends and their parents there, my moms finally put their feet down on my sister to stop her tantrum when she wanted to push my cake off the table. My sister ended up getting a timeout out for the first time since she was a toddler, and my mom had to stay with her to make sure she didn't do anything crazy. And she did try several times to run to the cake or stack of presents. Who knows what she would have done were it not for the fact at least one adult was always on guard. Even my mom stood guard to keep her away. My mom ended up having to remove my sister and herself from the party entirely and took my little sis to a McDonald's nearby so she could have fun in their play area. And I heard later she spent at least an hour trying to get her to come out of the place tube structure, and she only did so because she had to use the bathroom, then tried to run right back in again. My parents never tried to cancel my birthday again while still I lived with them, though they never again tried as hard or spent as much. For the remaining 4 years, I was under their roof. My birthday parties consisted of a local pizza parlor, a cake without even my name written on it, and never again anything as expensive as a new gaming system. I don't mean to sound spoiled, but I was a bit disappointed I never got a cake with my name on it again. My uncle called my parents out on that each year, and each year they claimed they forgot to get the cake decorated. I'm pretty sure that the reason my name was never written on another cake was because my sister always refused to eat pieces of cake that had writing of someone else's name on it at any party. And they couldn't put her name on any of my cakes, or it would have looked very bad for them. But the fact that I still got a day that was just about me all and not my sister was still fantastic in my book, especially because just about everything else revolved around her. During each of my remaining birthday parties while still living at home, my sister made a fuss, and my mom took her somewhere else to calm her down. I was still required to share my PS4 with my sister, but it was still mine. And I took it with me when I moved out at 18. Little sis did not like that and had a huge fit till my parents went out and bought another PS4 for her. When I moved out, they finally had to deal with how they'd raised my sister so spoiled because I wasn't there to help them with her anymore. On her recent 14th birthday, she went mental on our parents for not getting her a PS5. She is now currently grounded for I don't know how long after causing hundreds or maybe even thousands in collateral damage during her rampage. She picked up a chair and just started destroying anything that was in front of her with it. And my parents just looked mentally checked out when I saw them last. My uncle has also told me they confided in him that they wish they could send my sister to military or boarding school in the future because they can't handle the monster they created anymore. But there's no way they can afford that. I'd be lying if I said I didn't find it ironically funny. Edit, holy cow, this blew up. I'd like to thank everyone who's commented and given me awards. It really means a lot to me. Thank you all so much. For those who read my previous post about how my parents tried to cancel my 14th birthday, they knew very well what my sister was like during birthday parties that weren't her own, and they tried to enable her behavior in any way they could just because she's high-functioning autistic. Well, that rampant spoiling didn't go well with people outside of the family. Like it all, this happened, I think, when my sister was around 6 to 7 years old. A neighbor girl down the street was having her birthday party. And my sister got invited because they were sort of friends, but probably because they knew my parents would bring a gift, and they did. Don't remember what it was though, nor do I really care. My parents dragged me along to this party even though I'd have rather stayed home and played video games. I was bored and sitting down almost the entire time. So I got to witness pretty much the whole situation. It started when my sister was caught picking up gifts off the table and shaking them. The parents of the birthday girl told her to stop, and my parents tried to defend my sister and say she was harmless. But the lady knew what my sister was really like and had my parents move her away from the presence. There were some games that the kids were playing. Don't remember what they were. But I do remember my sister tried to be the center of attention as much as possible. With each game, the birthday girl got first pick/turn on them all because it was her birthday. But my sister freaked out because she didn't get to be first. And my parents did ask the birthday girl's parents if my sister could get the first pick/turns. And the lady not only refused, but told my parents to get my sister under control or we'd all be asked to leave. Then came time for the cake. The parents lit the candles for the birthday girl, and the adults started singing the happy birthday song. They only got as far as singing the birthday girl's name in the song before my sister burst into a tantrum at the table. She grabbed the side of the table and started trying to violently shake it. My parents had to hold my sister back for a moment. And then I saw my parents go up and talk to the parents of the birthday girl again about something. And the poor lady looked positively disgusted. And I learned later that she'd asked her to let my sister blow out the candles first, and then they could redo it. The lady told my parents that it would be best if we left, and then they went back to trying to redo the birthday song. Well, my sister couldn't take it and ran to the table and shoved the whole cake right at the birthday girl. I mean, she used her arm to literally clothesline the cake and heave it right into that poor kid's face. The whole room was silent for a few seconds, and then a bunch of the kids started laughing. Then the birthday girl started crying, and the adults were all mortified except for my parents. My parents just started hugging my sister tightly and acting like a Karen by saying this could have been prevented if they just let my sister blow out the candles first. The parents of the birthday girl was cleaning up chocolate cake off her daughter and screamed at my parents to get out. The other kids there started crying because it had finally hit them that now there was no cake. My parents started dragging my sister out, but she broke free of her and then pushed over the table with all the presents on it. I grabbed her and held her in a headlock till my parents grabbed her. I apologized profusely to the parents of the birthday girl and said I wasn't on my parents' side in the matter. Yeah. That's right. Little 12-year-old me had to apologize for my own parents. My mom yelled to me to get moving or I could walk home. I said I'd walk home. It was literally a quarter mile down the street. I stayed and helped clean up the mess my sister made. The lady thanked me and said that I was a good egg, but my sister was just rotten. Someone went out and got another cake while the birthday girl had to take a shower because she was covered in cake. All of the mess was cleaned up, and they redid the birthday song. After the party was over, The parents of the birthday girl wrote something out on a piece of paper. It was a handwritten invoice to my parents for the destroyed cake, along with a written threat to call police as someone there with a camera caught everything. I handed the invoice to my parents, and they really didn't look happy when they read it. Then they gave me the cash and told me to take it back to the lady. So I did. And that was pretty much it. Neither that kid or her family ever associated with my sister or my parents ever again. But the messed up thing is that at another birthday party months later, the same situation nearly repeated entirely. My parents asked the parents to let my sister blow out the candles first, gave BS excuses as to why, and they outright refused, and my parents acted like a total Karen. My sister tried to knock down the cake. I was on guard and intercepted her. Then we were told to leave. It was after that my sister was no longer invited to birthday parties that were not relatives. And then on my next birthday in that same year when I turned 13, my parents tried to get me to let my sister blow out my candles, and my uncle tore into them for that. It was then, I guess, that my parents decided that if I couldn't share, then next year I shouldn't have a party at all. And any previous readers know how that turned out. When I was 17, I bought a used mini bike and used it to get to and from a part-time job. Those who've read my previous posts know what my little sister is like. The girl my parents extra coddled because she was diagnosed as high-functioning autistic. And anything I had, my sister had to have too. And if I refused to give it, my parents generally took it. At least until the behavior was exposed to the public when my parents tried to cancel my 14th birthday. After that, my parents stopped forcing me to give my stuff to my sister whenever she wanted it, and it led to some extra huge tantrums from her. My sister would look for things around the house to throw to the floor and break, usually dishes. My parents actually stocked up on plates from second-hand stores because of that. When I got the mini bike, my sister was upset I would never let her ride it, but she's destructive with all her stuff. Every time she broke her BMX, I'm the one who had to fix it. Change a flat, new pedals, new tire, new handlebars, new brake line, etc. She's got a stunt BMX that she begged for, and my parents spent hundreds on it. But as much as she loves it, she never fixes it herself or properly takes care of it. Just calls me over begging me to fix it. My parents got her the parts and have the tools, but she never bothers to do anything more than pump up a tire. And even then, she usually tries to get someone to do it for her. She's also very careless in where she leaves the bike. She left it in a neighbor's driveway, and its handlebars got run over by the neighbor's van. She somehow destroyed the pedals, and a new pair had to be put on. She broke the rear brake line while having a tantrum too. The tire was understandable though since those were out. But it wasn't hard to swap it, and I shouldn't have had to come over on a Saturday to do it when my sister is perfectly capable of doing it herself. So damn right I'm not letting her take my mini bike on a joyride, especially with gas prices being so high these days. The mini bike gets, like, 60 miles per gallon. So what that it only goes 40 miles per hour. I only have a 5-mile commute anyway. About a month before my sister's 14th birthday, my parents called me begging me to come over and fix the BMX again. Little sis had worn the rear tire down to its threads. I was annoyed, but I came over anyway because they offered to pay me. I swapped the tire and sat down for a bottled water because it was, like, 100 degrees that day. My sister watched me work on the bike till I was done. Her helmet was on, so I figured she was just waiting to go riding on her bike. But the moment my back was turned, I heard my mini bike start up outside and then take off. Little sis took off like a rocket down the street on it before I could get out of the garage. I freaked out, but my parents tried to play it off. Though when I didn't placate them, they said they'd get my mini bike back right away. But for them, that was more like just waiting till my sister came back with it. I was annoyed, and I wanted to call the police, but I'm not sure if they'd call it a domestic issue or not. My sister finally came back an hour later. She'd somehow not crashed. But the moment she saw me, she took off again. She drove the bike till it ran out of gas, and my parents had to go get her. To say I was furious was an understatement. But my parents basically rolled their eyes, handed me $40, and claimed it wouldn't happen again. I said it better not, or I'd call the cops next time. Not sure if it'd help, but they seemed to take my warning. I had to push my mini bike to the nearest gas station to fill up before I could go home. Before I left, I told my parents that if my sister wants a mini bike so bad, then they should get her one. But then they pulled a 180 and said she wasn't ready to have one because it's a big responsibility and that it was too dangerous because it's practically a motorcycle. I mean, really? They just let her steal mine for, like, 2 hours to go joyriding to God knows where, and they don't want to get her one themselves? Whatever. I'm used to their hypocrisy by now. The last time I went to my parents' house, my sister was massively grounded and in her room for her birthday rampage I mentioned in my first post. But just to be sure, I pulled the spark plug wire off my bike before I entered the house. My sister was glaring at me from her window when I left. I just gave her a goofy wave and drove off. Well, a while ago, someone here commented the idea that my parents should sell a bunch of my sister's stuff. So I talked to my parents about how they could probably recoup some of their losses from the birthday rampage by selling a lot of my sister's stuff. I was surprised by how readily they agreed it was a good idea. I mean, it was like a light bulb moment for them. Then over the weekend, they had a big garage sale. They sold my sister's bike, her video game systems, everything. I went to help out with the sale and could hear my sister crying in her room. All of the video game systems she had were sold. And I mean, there was a lot of them. She had a GameCube, a Wii, a 3DS, a Switch, PS2, PS3, PS4, Xbox 360, Xbox One, and a ton of games for them all. And they sold all of them. I was pretty tempted to buy something from the sale myself, but I knew if my sister were to be made aware that I had something she used to own, who knows what she might do. So I held back. The bike alone went for $30. They also sold her TV, her RC cars, her drone, and pretty much anything else electronic she owned. They are in the process of selling her gaming PC online now as well. There's a cheap laptop too, but it was mainly used for school, and she was denied access to it for anything else. My parents told me that my sister's room had been stripped of everything but the essentials. While I was visiting during the sale, my sister walked out of her room once, saw me, and then ran back into her room crying loudly. I know fake crying from her when I hear it, and it was as fake as it gets. My parents know this too and have not fallen for her game. I asked them if she was going to be sent to therapy, and they said they really have no choice but to that. And they fully admitted this was all their fault for enabling her for so long. I could have rubbed it in their faces, but I think the look they saw on my face was enough that they understood. For the past several years, they've been in progressively worse and worse denial about their bad parenting. Friends and family have been telling them for a long time now that they went way too far spoiling my sister. And that not only would it come back on them one day, but it'd also mean that my sister may be incapable of functioning as an adult. And if that's the case, she'd expect someone to provide for her every need forever. And I would not become her caretaker when they become too old. My sister hadn't shown much improvement over the next few weeks. She was still being a brat, fake crying, getting into more trouble, and even stole another kid's cell phone at school. She was caught playing on it in her closet, and my parents had to return it to the school to find out who it belonged to. Last week, I had an idea and suggested a family intervention. My parents were hesitant when I brought it up, but they reluctantly agreed to it. I'm sure their hesitation was because an intervention would put them on the spot along with my sister. Then on the next possible day, all close family and some friends could gather at my parents' house. We formed a circle of chairs in the living room, initially without my sister in the room. My uncle spoke first, and oh, boy, did he let them have it. He'd written an entire speech that we all silently listened to. My parents tried to interject from time to time, but were silenced. When it came to be my turn to speak, I also read a speech I composed, basically repeating everything I've told on Reddit thus far and plenty more. My grandparents went next, and it just sort of followed down the line from there. My parents was in tears, and my parents just held her. They both apologized to me heavily and said they were terrible parents and that they ruined my childhood. I'll never get that back. My uncle loudly stated that it should not have come to this for them to realize their own hypocrisy. And from now on, they needed to do better, not only for my sake, but especially for the sake of my sister so she can grow up normal. My sister was brought into the room next, and she was seated away from my parents because my parents would have an urge to cuddle her when she was upset. It didn't take long for the family to lay into my sister. She tried fighting us a lot. But when excuses, like, if only they just let me have my way, were about all she could say, we all let her have it about how that's not how the world works. She tried getting help from our parents, but she refused to look at her. She started huffing and acting like she was hyperventilating, then intentionally fell to the floor. It's not the first time she's done this. My uncle just told her to stop milking it and get up. She screamed at him that we were all ruining her life, and she wishes we were all dead. My parents were horrified. My sister refused to get up off the floor and kept breathing heavily to pretend to have some sort of attack, so everyone just left her laying there while they each said their piece about why they were there to her. She screamed at random a few times, but didn't move from where she'd laid down. Eventually, everyone started leaving. And my parents had to actually drag my sister back to her room because she refused to get up off the floor. She's not used to people having no sympathy for her, especially from our parents. This is gonna be a long uphill battle. My uncle has offered to chip in for therapy, and my parents have taken him up on it. Let's hope therapy does my sister some good. Edit context. Some have been asking what happened with my sister's birthday rampage. Well, to put it simply, she didn't get a PS5, so she went mental with a chair and destroyed whatever she could with it, which was finally the breaking point for my parents, and they grounded her severely. If y'all want any more details on what happened, just look at my prior posts. Update 1. It's been a few months since the family intervention, and I wanted to give an update on how things have been going with my sister and parents. The therapy sessions for my sister started off rocky to say the least. She refused to participate at first, throwing tantrums and storming out of the therapist's office multiple times. My parents were at their wits' end, But the therapist assured them this was normal for someone like my sister who had never faced real consequences before. After about a month, something seemed to click. My sister started actually engaging in the sessions, though she was still resistant. The therapist suggested a reward system for good behavior, but with a twist: my sister had to earn back her privileges and possessions through consistent positive actions and attitude. At home, my parents stuck to their guns, which honestly surprised me. They implemented a strict routine and chore schedule for my sister. At first, she fought against it tooth and nail. There were screaming matches, broken dishes, and even a few attempts to run away. But my parents held firm, and slowly, very slowly, my sister started to adapt. One day, I got a call from my mom. She was in tears, but for once, they were happy tears. My sister had completed all her chores for the week without being asked and had even helped her carry in groceries without expecting a reward. It was a small step, but a significant one. The real test came during a family dinner about 2 months ago. My uncle, the same one who had been so vocal during the intervention, was visiting. As we sat down to eat, my sister actually asked if she could help set the table. The shock on everyone's faces was palpable. My uncle praised her, and for the first time in years, I saw my sister genuinely smile at a compliment instead of just expecting it. Of course, it hasn't all been smooth sailing. There have been setbacks. Last month, my sister had a meltdown when she wasn't allowed to stay up late on a school night. She broke a lamp and yelled that we all hated her. But instead of caving, my parents calmly enforced the consequences they had established with her therapist. To everyone's surprise, my sister actually apologized the next day, something I had never heard her do before. The most recent development happened just last week. My sister's school called my parents for a meeting. Apparently, there had been an incident in class where another student was struggling with a math problem. Instead of making fun of them or causing a disruption like she might have in the past, my sister actually offered to help. The teacher was so impressed by her patience and kindness that she wanted to let my parents know. When my parents told me about this, I could hear the pride in their voices. It was a strange feeling being proud of my sister. For so long, she had been the source of stress and resentment in our family. But now seeing her make these changes, I felt a glimmer of hope. Don't get me wrong. We still have a long way to go. My sister still has her moments, and years of bad habits won't disappear overnight. But for the first time in a long time, it feels like we're moving in the right direction as a family. I've even started spending more time at my parents' house, something I never thought I'd do willingly. Last weekend, my sister and I actually played a video game together without any arguments or tantrums. It was nice. As I write this, I'm cautiously optimistic about the future. There's still a lot of healing to be done, both for my sister and for our family as a whole. But for the first time in years, it feels like that healing might actually be possible. It's been 3 years since my last update about my sister's progress. I'm now 23, working full-time as a software developer, and living in my own apartment about 30 minutes from my parents' home. My sister just turned 17 and is preparing for her senior year of high school. The journey hasn't been linear, but the transformation in our family has been remarkable. After that first year of intensive therapy and structure, my sister continued to make slow but steady progress. There were still setbacks, a particularly bad one during her sophomore year when she fell in with a group of friends who encouraged her entitled behavior. For about 3 months, it seemed like we were back to square one. Her grades slipped, she started talking back to our parents again, and the tantrums briefly returned. My parents surprised me by handling it perfectly. They didn't overreact or give in, they simply maintained boundaries and consequences. When she missed curfew, her phone privileges were restricted. When her grades dropped, she lost social privileges until she brought them back up. The consistency was key, something they'd never managed during my childhood. Eventually, my sister's new friends moved on when they realized she couldn't get away with the same things they could. There were tears and accusations that our parents were ruining her life, but they stood firm. By the end of that school year, she'd broken ties with that group and her behavior stabilized again. The most telling moment came during my sister's 16th birthday last year. My parents planned a modest celebration, dinner at a nice restaurant and a homemade cake. Instead of the extravagant gift she might have expected years ago, they gave her a used but reliable car they'd been fixing up together as a project over the previous 6 months. I braced myself for disappointment or comparison to what her friends received, but it never came. Instead, she was genuinely thrilled because she'd put in actual work to help restore the vehicle. She understood its value because she'd invested her own time and effort. It wasn't the newest model or the flashiest car, but it was hers in a way that none of her previous possessions had been. My relationship with my sister has evolved in ways I never thought possible. We're not best friends, too much history and too big an age gap for that, but we've developed a genuine respect for each other. When she needs help with coding for her computer science class, she calls me. Not because our parents force her to, but because she actually values my knowledge. Last month, she called me in tears after failing her driver's test. 3 years ago, this would have triggered a meltdown of epic proportions with blame cast on everyone but herself. Instead, she was just disappointed and wanted advice on how to do better next time. We talked through her mistakes, I offered to practice with her, and 2 weeks later she passed on her second attempt. The most profound change has been in my parents. They've gone from enabling and defensive to thoughtful and accountable. They've apologized to me multiple times for how they handled things during my childhood. While those apologies can't erase what happened, their actions have shown genuine change. Dad joined a support group for parents of children with special needs, where he's learned healthier coping mechanisms and parenting strategies. Mom has become an advocate for balanced parenting at my sister's school, even sharing their story, anonymously, as a cautionary tale for other parents of children with high-functioning autism. When I visit now, the atmosphere is completely different. The walking on eggshells tension that permeated our home has been replaced with a calm stability. Rules are clear, consequences are consistent, and everyone knows what to expect. I won't pretend everything is perfect. My sister still has her moments, especially when she's overwhelmed or stressed. The difference is that now she's learning to recognize her triggers and developing coping strategies that don't involve manipulating others. My parents have started talking about college options for her. They're not pushing for prestigious schools or specific majors, they're focusing on finding environments where she can continue to develop independence while having appropriate support systems. It's the kind of thoughtful planning I wish they'd done for me, but I'm glad they're doing it now. As for me, I'm still working through some residual resentment in my own therapy. Some days I wonder who I might have become if I'd had the stability and attention my sister now receives. But mostly, I'm grateful that the destructive cycle was broken, even if it happened later than it should have. My uncle remains a steadfast presence in all our lives. He stops by regularly to check on progress and offer support. He never says "I told you so" to my parents, but his knowing smile says plenty when he sees positive developments. Last week, my sister texted me asking if I wanted to go hiking this weekend. She remembered I mentioned wanting to try a new trail, and she thought it might be fun to go together. 5 years ago, this kind of consideration would have been unimaginable. I said yes, of course. One step at a time, we're building something new, a family dynamic based on mutual respect rather than fear and favoritism. It's not the childhood I deserved, but it's the future we all needed.